Section 9 of The Talking Handkerchief and Other Stories. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Danny Hauger, DannyHauger.com. The Talking Handkerchief and Other Stories by Thomas Wallace Knox. A Fight with a Tiger. Apt Evans invited me to go to his tea plantation up country and stay as long as I liked, and by way of allurement he promised me a tiger hunt. "You can have it any way that suits you," said he, "from a Mai-Chan to a battue with elephants, but in the latter case you will have to stand the expense, as my purse won't afford it, and a tidy bit of expense it will be. Just before I came down to Calcutta, I heard of a man-eater about 50 miles from my place, and if you say the word, we'll try for his hide and the government reward." "You will be safe enough if you hunt from a Mai-Chan," said the captain, "a mode of entertainment that is practiced more by the native princes than by Europeans. They have stands or stone towers, Mai-Chans, erected along a valley where a tiger is likely to run when driven out of the jungle. The hunters get into those stands and then send the beaters to drive the game out of its place of concealment. As the tigers run along the valley, they are shot, and the men who shoot them or at them are perfectly safe from attack. I never tried this form of hunting but once, and then it was at the invitation of a native prince. I killed the tiger as he was trotting leisurely along the valley, and not 50 yards in front of me, killed him at the first shot. When satisfied that he was dead, I went out with the attendants to bring him in, and I found that the beast had a collar around his neck with my host's name on it. The polite prince had let the tiger loose so that our hunt should not be without result. The captain was just starting to give an account of the battue with elephants and also of a hunt on foot when his friend the major interrupted him. "Tell us more about your 10 minutes with the tiger in Mysore," said the major. "There's a story of a creature that was very famous in his day." "Yes, he was," replied the captain, "but I must have a fresh cigar before I tell about him." Suiting the action to the word, he lighted a Havana, which the major preferred, settled back onto his chair, was silent for a few moments, and then began his narration. "I was serving in the Fusiliers, and my detachment had been 2 or 3 months in Mysore, the capital of the district of the same name, when word came that there was a man-eater at work about 100 miles to the east of the city, supposed to be at the same time that had been in the southern part of the district for a year or more. I obtained leave to go for him. Thompson asked for leave at the same time and got it, and away we went together. Poor old Thompson. Little did he think it was to be his last hunt. We took along our favorite shikari huntsman, who had been with us in several hunts and knew his business. He gathered a party of about 40 beaters, and while getting them together, he made diligent inquiries as to where the tiger had last been seen. He hadn't been heard of anywhere for several days, and so we determined to wait for fresh news before starting out. We hadn't long to wait, for the very evening that Shikari had finished organizing his party, this tiger carried off a young woman who was walking along a path not 50 yards from the village where she lived. 2 men were not more than a dozen yards behind her when the beast sprang out from under a corinda bush, seized the woman by the neck, and carried her off as easily as though she had been a partridge or a rabbit. By daylight the next morning we were on his track and followed it for half a mile to where, at the side of a great rock, he had devoured all he cared to of the body of his victim. Poor girl! She was to have been married that day week. At any rate, that's what the headman at the village told us. Half a mile further on there was a patch of jungle, and the shikari tracked the beast quite near its edge, and was satisfied that our game was concealed somewhere in the thicket. Our party was not large enough to surround the jungle, and we sent to the neighboring villages and obtained as many men as we could to act as beaters and frighten the animal out so that we could get a shot at him. I was about to ask why they did not go directly into the jungle and shoot him in his lair. The captain anticipated my inquiry, as he immediately continued. "If we had wanted to commit suicide, we would have gone into the jungle and hunted the fellow out. It is a very unsafe thing to do, as the tiger sees you long before you can possibly see him, and if he has no good way of escape, he will turn the tables on you without asking your leave. Almost from under your feet, he will rise and make a spring at you, and there is rarely time to use your rifle as he comes in. Many a hunter has left his bones in India by following a tiger into the jungle, and especially by going there in pursuit of one that he has wounded. In little more than an hour, we had the jungle surrounded by the beaters. Thompson and I selected our stands about 50 yards apart, where he thought the beast would try to escape, and then the signal was given for the beaters to begin. They made a great noise with drums and tom-toms. They threw stones into the thicket, and every little while they fired off their old muskets to add to the tumult. On the side where Thompson and I were stationed, there were no noise, as we wanted the tiger to believe that all the danger lay where the racket was being made, and so he would run in our direction. The man-eater came out of the jungle, not creeping stealthily as we had expected, but making great bounds into the air at the top of his speed. Thompson fired, and so did I, but neither of our shots were fatal, though both took effect. With a roar that seemed to shake the ground, the brute turned and sprang at Thompson, sprang upon him and threw him to the ground, and then grasped him by the throat and shook him as a cat shakes a mouse. I dared not fire for fear of hitting my friend, but I stood with my rifle ready for a shot the moment the tiger should drop his victim. Thompson made no movement. Quite likely he was killed by the first blow of the tiger or stunned by the fall, and if not then stunned, he was certain to have been rendered insensible by the shaking he received. The habit of all animals of the cat species to shake their prey is really a merciful one, as it stupefies them and so renders death painless. Several hunters who have been rescued from the jaws of the tiger have said that they were without sensation after the beast had shaken them in the way I have told you. The tiger dropped Thompson and raised its head, and then I fired in the hope of making a deadly shot. Then the beast turned on me, and I got in another shot which stopped it for a moment, just long enough for me to spring into the branches of a small tree under which I was standing. In springing there, I dropped my rifle, and so found myself without a weapon other than the knife at my belt. The tiger tried to reach me in the tree. He might have done so had not one of his forelegs been shattered by a bullet, probably the last one I fired. There was a great gash across his head, but it was only a skin wound, the thick skull having glanced away the bullet like the side of a gunboat. Then there was a wound across his back, but I could easily see that it was not serious. A tiger will stand a great deal of lead in him, and, on the other hand, he is easily killed if you can only touch certain parts. He crouched at the foot of the tree when he found he could not reach me, and there he lay growling, lashing his tail from side to side, and every few moments giving a roar that could be heard for a long distance. If I had not lost my rifle, I could have settled him very quickly, but to attack him with a knife would have been madness, and my only hope was in the shikaree hearing the roar and coming out to my aid. I knew none of the other natives would venture in the vicinity, and already most of them had quite likely taken to their heels and fled to their villages. The shikaree came as I hoped and expected. As he approached, I indicated by signs for him to take Thompson's rifle, which was more effective than his own, and finish the beast. He nodded compliance, took the rifle from the ground where it lay, filled the magazine from the pouch of cartridges on the body of my dead comrade, and then, while I held the attention of the tiger by making menacing motions and pretending that I was about to descend to the ground, the hunter crept within 20 yards of the tree and stretched the animal lifeless with a bullet through his heart. Another bullet followed, and also another to make sure work, and then I came to the ground to measure my late antagonist. From tip to tip, he was 11 feet, 7.5 inches in length, the longest tiger by more than 12 inches that I have ever secured. It was fully 10 minutes from the time I sprang into the tree until the shikaree came in sight, and the longest 10 minutes I ever had in my life. End of section 9. Recording by Danny Hauger. www.dannyhauger.com.